In this second lecture on Philippians 2, 5-11, we will focus in on the phrase that we find in the New King James Version and other modern versions, the form of God. The Greek behind that English translation is en morphe theou. Our passage in the New King James reads, Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant, and coming in the likeness of men. In this passage we see that the phrase form of is used twice, the form of God in verse 6, and then the form of a bondservant in verse 7. As we read this in English, there is a awkwardness to the expression because we rarely ever use the expression form of God, except when we read this passage, and likewise we don't use the expression form of a bondservant. Both of these expressions, with the use of the word form, are not obvious and clear in their meaning to the English reader. The awkwardness in English for the expression form of God arises from the fact that we often use the word form in English in distinction from and in opposition to the idea of essential nature. The essential nature, or the very nature of something, is what makes something to be what it is. But we often use the word form in contrast to mean outward appearance, the shape of something, which in fact may disguise what it really is. Let us take the example of a wax museum. In a wax museum, we will find the form of some famous man. But it's not a man, it's only wax. And we might say that that wax figurine has the likeness of a man, but it's only wax. Or that it has the appearance of a man, but it's only wax. In other words, in common English usage, the word form suggests outward form, appearance, likeness, but not necessarily substance, reality, essential nature, or essence. When the English word form is used in a context where we also find the English word likeness and the English word appearance, these three words together all suggest the idea of mere outward shape, not of the reality that underlies that shape. That is to say, form, but not essential nature. In Philippians 2, 6-8, Jesus is described as being in the form of God, then as taking the form of a servant, coming in the likeness of men, and being found in appearance as a man. The combination of the words form, likeness, and appearance in this passage all reinforce the sense that the word form is being used in the sense of mere outward shape or appearance, not the reality of something, not its essential nature. As a result, the English reader is somewhat confused by the language of the passage. It does not seem to be talking about mere outward appearance, and yet it uses the language that suggests that we're only talking about likeness, appearance, or outward form. Listen to the passage again. Who, being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant, and coming in the likeness of men, and being found in the appearance as a man. This translation of the New King James, not greatly different than most of the other translations, leaves the reader with the impression that form of God may just be an outward form, an appearance, and not a reality. We commonly use the English word form to describe the outward appearance of something. So the form of God seems to be an awkward expression because God is spirit. He has no form. And if God is spirit and has no form, then how can Jesus be in the form of God? The expression is not obvious in meaning. The reason is that we do not use the word form in ordinary English to describe the essential nature of something, what makes something to be what it is, its essence. We instead use words like essence, essential nature, very nature, or substance. The Greek word morphe, just like the English word form, can be used for the outward visible shape of something. Let us transliterate the Greek word morphe into the English alphabet. We end up with morph. And as soon as we see morph, we say, oh, I know that word inside of other words in English, like metamorphosis, that is to say, a change in form. We use that word to describe what happens to a butterfly when it goes from the chrysalis state into the butterfly state. Likewise, we use the morph word in the word morphology for the form of words. Just like in English, the Greek word morphe can refer to the outward form or shape or appearance of something, hence its use in words like metamorphosis and morphology. The Greek word morphe also has another usage well established in ancient Greek. In that other usage, morphe is used to describe that which makes something to be what it is, its essential nature, its essence, or its substance. So the question we have to ask is, in which sense is the word morphe being used in our passage in Philippians 2? Is it being used in the sense of outward form or shape, or in the sense of essential nature, essence? The use of morphe in the sense of essential nature, essence, is derived from the writings of Plato. Plato had the notion that there were certain ideas that existed eternally, and existing things partook of those ideas. So there was an eternal idea of justice, and that eternal idea of justice was the essence or the essential nature of every act of justice in human society. Plato used two words to describe this notion. He used the word eidos, from which our word idea is derived, and he used the word morphe, or in English, form. So in Plato's philosophy, the form of something is that eternal idea of something which makes something to be what it is. In this usage, the form of God would describe not the outward appearance of God, but the essential nature, the essence of God. Unless one has studied Plato's philosophy in English, the English speaker does not encounter the word form in this philosophical sense of essential nature or essence. However, if one has read Plato and has taken a course on Plato's philosophy, then an English speaker is aware of this use of the English word form to translate the Greek word morphe in the sense of essential nature or essence. So for some English readers, form of God at least is possibly the essence or essential nature of God, because he recognizes that the word form in English, when used philosophically in Plato, has this specialized meaning of essential nature, essence, rather than the more common meaning of outward form, shape. The meaning of the Greek word morphe as essential nature or essence is a usage that continued from Plato through the New Testament period into the early Christian era. So the use of the phrase form of God, while odd in our ears, and morphe theou in Greek, was not at all odd to an ancient reader of the scriptures or of the early Christian writers.